Hello, my name is Cory Endrulat. This is the Nature Dynamic Part 2. You don't have to watch Part 1 as this is completely separate. However, it is part of understanding more about nature. And this is something that I created myself. So every problem and solution is related to two things: health or freedom, otherwise known as status, condition, or nature. And all things are contingent upon and necessary for the matter of naturalization, which is alignment to nature. And if you're interested more in this idea of naturalization versus denaturing, or the natural versus unnatural, you can check out the Nature Dynamic Part 1. The cycle goes on as the following: nature to naturalization to nature. Naturalization includes nurturing via knowledge and freedom of nature, because nature provides both. And from that, you get your result condition, which is health, which is also your current condition. But every time you go through some sort of influence within your life, it can affect you and affect ultimately your health, your nature, your condition, your status. So within this cycle, within these words, within our perceptions, within everything and anything in this world, is nature or a nature, best simply worded as natures, with an S in parentheses. Not only representative for the current, but for that of the desired future or past. Not only representative for one part, but for that of the entire whole. The whole nature of anything is as following. The simple nature is the intended use or function. This is also said as true nature. The base nature is the requirements. The core nature is what it's made of. And the second nature is the impacts or effects. This is also the secondary use or function, otherwise known as the second simple nature. Optional descriptives includes the following: the general nature is the type or form. The higher nature is the greater simple nature. You can therefore evaluate everything through this lens utilizing your reasoning powers. But if we're going to look at an example, we can use natural law as an example and look at that in its nature, since it is a prominent theme of my works. The simple nature is for morality. The base nature is from reason or from harm. The core nature is of effects. The second nature can be anything from the nature of behavior, the nature of perceptions, to the nature of generalizations, to the nature of labels, since we are dealing with a general nature of a phenomenon. Finally, the higher nature would be for a better world. Reason both refers to the cause of effect, as well as the human ability to recognize cause and effect, or the knowledge of natures, even to the transmitting of such information. Therefore, a reasonable person would see violence as wrong, therefore ascribing to natural law. Therefore, one with reason would have a reason to reason, all for change. In other words, natural law can best be summed up as simply reason, as it is the base nature, just as it can also be any other part of its whole nature. Indeed, it can also simply just be harm, because if you know it, then you know when it's applicable. Of course, however, you can keep breaking down these terms, as recognizing harm would reasonably have a base nature of reason and a core nature of effects. The relatability of these terms would make sense too, since they constitute the same nature. You may notice that you can combine your answers as well to complete a sentence. For morality, from reason, of effects, can be the nature of blank, a phenomenon for a better world. Use this chart to help in your sentence structure for synergy, meaning that the whole nature constitutes a greater reasoning or meaning to our minds. If we want to see more validity in using the terms natural law instead of reason, we may want to compare it to the nature of the perceived man's law. Oftentimes, like in this example, there can be no need for certain terms to exist without other terms present for context or contrast. If we know something is wrong, we want to know what is right, and we start to know more as to what is right. It is the beauty in language that one can play with endlessly, And so when you experience beauty of natures, of which words you cannot describe, you bet with the words you do try to describe, your writing will be beautifully long or meaningful. Of course, words aren't necessary either, as we simply translate our thoughts, but they can describe things which often are. That is why I say nature's the answer, and I mean it. Mark Passio may give you doctrines, Larkin Rose may give you evidence, but I'm going to give you perspective. And while I think their views are just as necessary as mine, perspective is important because you are already part of nature, and it's simply our realization, our awakening, our understanding of it more, so we can best align our actions toward it. And I'm sure they understand this too, but new perspectives always help, and that's what I seek to do. I think it is possible to bridge all sides of different peoples who all stand on different sides of different issues. Why not? And if we simply choose to reason, which is what natural law essentially is, then I think, we are fulfilling what we are to do. I certainly provide this perspective that I speak of in my book, Slavery Gone for Good, because I'm making the perspective of saying, well, look at the root to statism, look at the root to natural law. We're looking at slavery. Why don't we just focus on the root if that is what we're actually talking about? And if that is what some people learn about in schools, and they have a little basic understanding of it, we can build on top of that, especially if the abolitionists of the past were actually sharing the ideas that we have. And so that's why I choose these words, such as slavery and abolitionism, and why I truly think that is what will make the biggest impact. Rather than using words like the most dangerous superstition or natural law, here you have something that is more easily digestible, something that more easily stands out. And so that is my goal with this, is to provide a new perspective.